Hey, how's it going? I'm Sephiros, and in this video I'm going to be creating some bass with Ableton's Granulator 2 device. It's a fantastic way to take sound and use that as a source material to create completely new sounds or similar sounds. It's basically a sampling synthesizer. So you load a sample in just like Sampler, but you can choose where to play the sample, and you can choose how much of the sample to loop. And so what we're going to be doing today is using that grain size to create a tone, and then you can use the file position almost like a wavetable position. So I'm going to show you a workflow that I've found to be quite useful, and that would be using a synthesizer to create some initial samples and then loading that into a granulator. So we could use Ableton wavetable. Let's try wavetable. And I'm just going to make a tone. I'm going to loop this and just check my levels. Alright, so let's go for a low note. So if you're just on iPhone speakers, you're probably not going to hear this until I get some overtones going. So there's like a square wave. So let's kind of boost the sub up on that square wave. I'm going to go for a linear phase EQ before a saturator. Cool, so now we're going to get a little saturation from that peak, so I can go in here and configure the frequency of it. So now I have a macro. So we could maybe use this device, MIDI shaper. It's a Max for Live device you can get. And this is basically like a serum-y type envelope. So let's map that to that macro. I can configure more of these bands, and maybe this one I'll just automate it. So maybe LFO could be a cool thing. Get a couple of these out, these Max for Live LFOs. I like this LFO-I on the random mode. So I could set this to random, and then if we open up with this little circle here, right here, you can choose different types of random here. And there's a couple more knobs that you can use to kind of tweak your randomness. So we could try maybe introducing some of that into the patch. Alright, so I'm just going to put a high pass filter at the end and group all of this. And then insert a sub underneath. I'll just use the operator on a sine wave. And then in here you can edit the harmonics. I'll give a little third harmonic there to make it like a squarish sine wave. Why is that playing the wrong pitch? That's a little strange. I'm gonna mute one. Yeah, that operator doesn't sound right. Oh, it's an octave low, so I'll get a pitch MIDI pitch plugin and put it right here so I can pitch that up. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. And then here in the harmonics, a little third harmonic might be nice. And a little release on the sub. Maybe a little pitch envelope. So since this layer is being high passed, we could also kind of EQ more of it out and get more of those highs, but maybe not the extreme highs. So we could do something interesting with this wavetable because we have a second oscillator. Let's try engaging that. Maybe pitch it up a couple octaves. Let's try mapping this random to this harmonic series wavetable position. Alright, so now when we distort these together, I'm going to get something that'll color the sound a lot, like an amp. Alright, so depending on how we control the gain of these signals, it should change the character a lot now. And we also could do FM here on the sub. So I'm going to try a couple of those things, just playing with the volume envelope a little bit now. Alright, so I'm going to start modulating a few more things. Let's get a normal LFO out here. And I'm just going to put it to random step on a slow random step and modulate the speed of this random, maybe between 70 and like 7. And I'm going for a short note like that. Maybe even shorter. Maybe let that sub ring out a bit more. So this top oscillator, we could maybe do a little unison, get some stereo going on. Some cool unison modes here. Random note, phase sync, shimmer. Let's try shimmer. Well, I'm digging that, but I'm gonna do a saturator before the amp just to square out the sound. Let's just try some chill OTT. I'm gonna try that in parallel. So parallel chain. Alright, I'm gonna do a little more EQ. Alright, so now I can start to record a few of these. Maybe I'll do a little mid-side EQ here. I'm just trying to make a pretty nice bass to start with, because then we can granulate it and get some cool movement that way. I'm just gonna bandpass. Yeah, it's pretty interesting so far. Put this on linear phase. Alright, so I'm going to render that one and then change it and then render it again. Alright, so there's one. Let's maybe play with the operator FM here a little bit. Maybe with this, let's try changing the wavetable. Try pitching it up. Alright, so there's another cool iteration. We could maybe try putting a corpus in here. I'll put it on the top oscillator, or actually I'll put it right in front of the amp. So let's get the corpus out. So the thing with the corpus is it has this filter and it's a bandpass, and you have a bandpass wideness. So this is helpful for getting to sit in the mix, and then I could just fully wet, group it, and put it in parallel so that I can keep my main signal going through clean, and then just manipulate this, and then we can pitch this up maybe. That's a pretty nice one. And remember that random LFO is just going, so I can just sample the same one over and over. And they'll come out slightly different. Let's try a different saturator type, like soft sine. Let's do 2 amps. Let's do one on heavy. Whoa, that sounds crazy, but I'm gonna EQ it because it's getting really wild. Whoa, that's wild. Let's let this sub ring out louder. Yeah, there we go. It's kind of an interesting bass. You can maybe do a different pitch envelope, like some of this kind of thing. Let's get some of those. Maybe it'd be cool to pitch the tune of the corpus. Yeah, that was weird. What if we put the decay up? Oh, that's nice. Oh, yeah. So it can be cool to have like tight delays. I really like the kilohertz delay for this. And this sounds kind of crazy, but just put it on the whole signal, sub and all, and then you can get these wild overtones if you go feedback up, time low. I'm gonna actually put this delay after everything and then keep it fully wet, and we'll get some wild pitching around of the bass. So those are a bit loud, so we could turn them down. Alright, so that's about as many basses as I need to get something interesting going on in Granulator. And we can get some interesting movements by just consolidating all of these once there's a little bit more, you know, get them a little bit closer together like this. So first step was just make a bunch of bass, or it really could be anything. It really could be anything. I'm just going for bass. So now I'll just consolidate this, and then we'll load it into Granulator 2, where we can then start to modulate to kind of generate some interesting rhythms and movements. So this is Granulator 2. And we can load our sample into here. And now I have a keyboard, and I can now play this sample. So if I play C3, that'll be the original pitch of the sample, and then I can use this grain size to start zooming in on the piece of audio that we're looping. So if you want a little bit more space between each played loop of the grain, you can go here to this shape, and there's actually several different shapes. Rise, fall. So the fall is going to be much more percussive, and then you can go in here to the tilt, and you can tilt that shape. The negative tilt looks pretty cool, and then the spike, gives you more space between each grain. So check this out. Now it's going to be very percussive. So Granulator has a built-in LFO, which you can enable with this button right here. And there's several different types of LFO we can use. I'm going to go for a sample and hold here, which is just random values at a rate set by this cycle speed. And this is a cool LFO because it goes very slow. So let's go here, and then look, it's normal to have random built into the grain size, as well as the file position. The LFO right here, we can turn that up, and now it'll just bounce around. So if I play a C3, it'll just bounce around. So that's cool and all, but I'm going to turn the LFO down on the file position and get that LFOI that I showed you in the bass section. And we can use this to bounce around instead. So you can see we have like a linear interpolation, which is nice, and then you can smooth that out. And we could get another one of these and go to the grain size. Maybe do this random to the speed of this grain size LFO. Alright, so now it's just randomly doing its thing. Basically just modulating two things, the grain and file position. And now I'm just going to record some of this because I think it's kind of interesting. And I don't want to be at a loss, so I'm going to do just a C3. right, now I'm gonna just do some shorter bursts. Granulator has a cool FM section where you can choose the pitch here and then the amount right here. And then it also has this envelope here, and here's the filter and FM envelope. So maybe sustain down a little bit, release. All right, so this is a cool granulator patch for creating random rhythms, which can come in real handy if you're wanting to get saucy with the rhythmic sequence. But now, I'll show you another bass technique with the granulator. You can use any audio. So we'll load in that granulator into this granulator. And the technique here is to just do a real long C3 note. So we're going to do a real long C3 note. And then basically just use the scan knob to play through the audio and then dial in the grain size to get this really low, slow, stretched out bass sound. So you can see it's just looping a piece of the audio. So what we have to do is enable scan. And by default, it's at 100%, which is the original speed the sample plays from. So let's up it to like 300% so that it's scanning through slower. And then let's dial in a pretty small grain size, get a tone going. So it gets really crazy when you do the spread, but what I'm going to do is use another EQ after it and just band pass the sides, linear phase, band pass the sides. I'm going to delete that other bass patch now. Okay, so you can see it's scanning through really slowly, and the grain size lets you mess with the timbre, and you just get really gnarly results. Don't expect this to be like phase coherent or whatever. This is more top bass material here, but it can be really nice for pads or all kinds of stuff. You get a lot of interesting movement. So now I'll just record this, and I'm just going to tweak the patch a little bit. All right, so some more drawn out bass notes. Now, if you want to get even more precise, you can use a shorter sample, like say just these three. Consolidate that. And now if we put that in here, it's a smaller sample, so we'll have more fine control over what we're doing. So let's try that now. Yeah, so I'm gonna play, instead of 300, maybe 600. 600% slower. Even slower. Let's crank it up to 630. And instead of starting here, let's try to start like before this hit. So there's some ones that we made with smaller samples, and like I said, you know, it doesn't have to be bass. Something atonal like a drum loop can often be really cool. Let's get a little modular drum loop in here. Yeah, so really cool sounds you can make. It's all about dialing in that grain size to be operating in that bass frequency. That's the key to making these long bass sounds with the granulator. So, you know, if you have any tips, comments, questions, like and subscribe, all the good stuff. And yeah, thanks for watching. Until next time, I'm Sephiroth. Peace.